It's the Ross Tucker Football Podcast.
Oh, yeah, it is. But it's not just any Ross Tucker Football Podcast. It is a Wisdom Wednesday, presented, of course, by DraftKings. I'm Ross Tucker. It'd be weird if it wasn't Ross Tucker on the Ross Tucker Football Podcast, by the way. And we are presented by DraftKings, only 2 days away on a Wisdom Wednesday here from a new Spread the Word winner via social media, just like Facebook.com/Ross Tucker NFL. It's that easy. Like Facebook.com/Ross Tucker NFL. We'll have a sponsor confirmation email winner. Might be Masterworks, might be Last Bottle Wines, might be the amazing Game Time app I'm obsessed with right now. And then the YouTube shout out, youtube.com/Ross Tucker NFL. You know what to do. Please hit the thumbs up and then make a comment on any video. It's a really cool place. The two places that you can see the highlight clips of any of the shows, any of the episodes, the things I think are the 2 or 3 best clips from the show are either youtube.com/Ross Tucker NFL or following @Ross Tucker Pod on Twitter and Instagram. The patron of the day, we're still getting new patrons. This is amazing. I love when we get new members of the Tuckheads family. Patreon.com/RT Media. Loden, Spain. Loden, Spain. Welcome to the family, Loden. By the way, we got a lot to get to. It was the most eventful trade deadline in NFL history. We'll get to that, but first, it's Big Show time.
The Big Show.
All right, so you heard his voice on Monday's show talking about everything going on in the NFL, teeing me up on the games. I introduced him. His name is Jack Connell. He's at Jack P. Connell on social media. And he's going to be doing more and more stuff for us over the next couple months. And in fact, he's been doing stuff over the last few months. It started, Jack, what semester did you first intern?
I started the spring of last year. So I will say we started about like January 2022.
Okay, so he started in the spring of 2022. So in January, spring semester. So we did a great job in the spring, basically stayed on over the summer. We couldn't get rid of him. And he's still with us now. And, let's get some background on you, Jack, before I give some more news. So I want the listeners, well, I guess I got to give the news because I want all of the listeners to be very familiar with you. So the news is, and we'll do another interview, and this is only going to be a couple minutes with Jack, but I want to make sure you guys know the background on the new voice you're going to be hearing a lot on all the shows, Even Money Podcast, Fantasy Feast, College Draft Podcast. And the news is that Brian is retiring from the podcast game at the end of the year. Brian and I will have an awesome segment later on, right before Brian heads out, just to go over what's been an amazing, 10 years, maybe. It's been awesome. But Brian has a lot of duties, in fact, increased duties with his quote-unquote full-time job for Sports USA. They're doing NFL, they're doing NHL, and Brian does all kinds of producing for ESPN and other stuff. And so the bad news or the sad news is that Brian is retiring. The good news, the happy news, is that Jack is going to be full-time on the Ross Tucker Podcast Network. So Jack is going to be putting all of his time into growing all of the shows, producing the shows. If you guys follow us on any social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Jack's done an unbelievable job with TikTok, the YouTube clips. Jack's basically taken over for Casey and been doing all of that stuff and has been extremely impressive, which is why we tapped him. Brian and I tapped him to be the heir apparent. So, Jack, welcome to the business. Welcome to the family.
Thank you. I'm excited to get rolling. I mean, I've been excited for this for a while. I'm really kind of just excited to meet everybody, kind of get in the swing of things, and really take this thing to a next level on social media of everything.
Well, so across the board, all of our social media platforms have been growing pretty significantly, and Jack is the biggest reason for that. Jack and you guys helping us to grow our social media and following us and engaging. It's been awesome. The other thing is, I noticed yesterday, Jack, you already went, head first into our private Slack channel for patrons, patreon.com/RTmedia. I already saw you engaged in talking high school football with Zach.
Yeah, they were talking. I got some smack because my alum Happer Horsham got beat by, it was Council Rock South, I believe, Council Rock South or North the other week. And yeah, I had to step up for my boys. It's a rebuilding year. I mean, they've lost a lot of players, new coaching staff, so I had to step up for them. I haven't seen them around a while, but you always got to step up for your high school. You always do it while I'm missing. I got to do it for Happer Horsham.
So, by the way, Jack is a senior in college, hasn't even graduated yet, and yet he's going to be working full time around his classes for RT Media moving forward, which is very exciting. Pumped about that. And if you can't tell, Jack is from suburban Philadelphia. He's a student at Penn State. And so pretty cool time right now, Jack. How old are you? 21, 22?
Yeah, I'm 21. Yeah, I turned 22 in December. So.
Oh my gosh, 21 years old. When did you turn 21?
End of December. It's right after Christmas.
Right before I met you?
Yeah, it was literally right before you met me.
I specialize in hanging out with people on the night they turn 21. That's like what I was born to do. Is hang out with people on their 21st birthday party. That's epic. So obviously you're Philly 4 for 4, Eagles, Sixers, Flyers, and Phillies, of course.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean, they're my 4 teams. I grew up repping all 4, so it's definitely been exciting with Eagles being 7-0, Phillies in the World Series right now, having a 2-1 lead as we speak. Flyers are looking all right. Sixers got back to 500. So, yeah, everything's looking bright right now in Philadelphia.
So before I forget, Jack, we got to get you a rosstucker.com email address so that people have a place that they can email you if they ever want to engage with you right now. Of course, you can follow Jack at Jack P. Connell so that you know what's going on with Jack. I don't know if your DMs are open or not, Jack, but
they are.
They are. Jack's DMs are open. So if you ever have a suggestion for Jack or a tidbit or whatever the case might be, Jack will be ready. So over the next couple months, he's going to be learning everything from Brian behind the scenes. Already knows a bunch, but he's going to finalize everything else over the next couple months behind the scenes because there's a lot more stuff behind the scenes than you guys realize. And then he will be ready and raring to go once 2023 starts. It'll be all Jack from here on out. And obviously we'll have a great send-off for Brian as well. Jack, looking forward to working with you. Looking forward to your help to continue to grow this podcast business. And we got the young blood. We need the young blood. Brian and I are old heads, so we need the young blood into the business. Thanks so much for coming on the show that you'll be producing for the rest of your life.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you, SimpliSafe, for protecting my family when I'm away. Like tonight, when I fly to Houston to call the Eagles Texans tomorrow night on Westwood One. Really glad that we've got SimpliSafe to protect my wife and daughters while I'm away. There's a reason why it's the #1 rated home security system. And right now, by the way, you can get 50% off. 50% off. What an unbelievable, safe, and secure holiday season. This is the gift. You guys know the 2 experiences I've talked about frequently on the show. Here's what I would tell you. Don't have an experience. Don't wait till you have an issue before you get home security. I think a lot of people probably do, and I think that's a shame. I thought somebody the other day that they don't have a home security system. I was like, you got to get SimpliSafe. There's 24/7 monitoring. There's a reason why U.S. News and World Report called it best home security 3 years in a row. It costs less than a day. Do not miss your chance to save big on the only security system I recommend. Get 50% off any new SimpliSafe system at simplisafe.com/Tucker today. This is their biggest discount of the year. Don't wait. That's simplisafe.com/Tucker. There's no safe like SimpliSafe.
Tuck's Takes.
Hey, Ross. So what did I miss so far? All right.
What you missed is I told everybody the news. I don't know if you want to make a quick comment here, Bri.
I'm good. Let's just no. I'm thrilled for Jack. All good things come to an end, and we will stay as close as we are, and blah 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 blah. But look, nobody listening really cares about that. They care about the trade deadline, and we will start with the Broncos. They trade Bradley Chubb and a 5th to the Dolphins for a number 1 and number 4, and Chase Edmonds, and then the Broncos trade for Jets pass rusher Jacob Martin.
Right. It's interesting. A bunch of these teams did some backfilling, Bri, which I thought was interesting, right? So the Broncos trade Bradley Chubb, but then it's almost like they felt like, well, we kind of need to have another edge rusher for the rest of this season. Jacob Martin from the Jets is pretty decent. He's not Bradley Chubb. So they thought, let's get him. Let's get him in here. And so we have somebody. The other reason I think the Broncos did this is Bradley Chubb has had some injury issues. And the Broncos have several edge rushers they like. Nick Bonito, who they took in the 2nd round from Oklahoma. Jonathan Cooper, who they took in the 7th round from Ohio State a year ago. They like both those guys. I think they're as excited about Baron Browning, last year's 3rd round pick, as anybody. So they have some young pass rushers they like. And the reality is Bradley Chubb is going to be very expensive. And they just paid Russell Wilson a ton of money. So to get a 1, a 4, and Chase Edmonds feels pretty good. Even if you cancel the 4 and the 5 out, to get a 1 and Chase Edmonds for Bradley Chubb, who they weren't going to re-sign to a new contract. They weren't going to re-sign him. So to get a 1st round pick for him is awesome. I think the Dolphins have already locked him in to a new deal. We haven't heard that announced yet, but enough of the beat writers said it's coming or it's happening or it happened or whatever, that it seems pretty clear that Chubb will be a Dolphin for a long time. And I think I get it from a Dolphins perspective. You know, if you draft a guy in the 1st round, they may or may not pan out. The Dolphins have Tua on a rookie contract still, so they can kind of afford Bradley Chubb. They're not getting enough of an edge rush, especially opposite Jalen Phillips. Agba's okay. Wilkins is pretty good inside. Melvin Ingram's kind of more of a rotational guy. They decided they really, really needed to get a guy like Bradley Chubb in there. And I talked about this in power rankings yesterday. They kind of feel like that they're right there, and they should. I mean, they're right below the Bills and the Chiefs in my mind, with the Ravens and maybe the Titans. And they think Chubb might be a difference-making player in the playoffs for them to go on a run. They needed a talented edge rusher anyway. So I kind of get it for both sides. A 1 and the money is a lot for Chubb. If he stays healthy, I think that they believe he's worth it.
Tuck's Takes.
Continuing on with the Dolphins, they then trade a 5th round pick to San Francisco for running back Jeff Wilson.
Right. So Jeff Wilson obviously is a player that Mike McDaniel knows very well. They were together in San Francisco. And so Mike McDaniel needed a running back with trading Chase Edmonds to Denver, who gives Denver, by the way, a really good pass catching back that I think they wanted because that's not really Latavius Murray or Melvin Gordon. So Chase Edmonds, more of the change of pace third down back in Denver. The Niners send in Jeff Wilson to pair with Raheem Mostert, two guys that know the Dolphins system perfectly that Mike McDaniel employs. That makes sense.
Tuck's takes.
Bears trade Roquan Smith to the Ravens for a 2 and a 5 and Al Klein.
AJ Klein, actually.
Oh,
But
I was like, I didn't recognize an Al Klein. Maybe somebody like from the 50s.
Al, when's the last time? I guess Al Harris. But you're right. Al. When's the last baby bride you think that was named Al?
Ooh. I mean, Albert is still short for Albert, right? Short for
Yeah.
Allen.
Yeah, or Allen, I guess. Yeah, there's probably some Allens or Alberts out there. But that would be amazing if someone just named their son Al and it wasn't like short for anything. If it was just like, hey, here's my baby, Al. Oh, man, that just doesn't sound right. So, especially because his name's not Al Klein, it's AJ Klein. So this is interesting. The Bears had obviously already traded Robert Quinn. And Quinn's kind of up there in years and was very expensive and hadn't been very productive for them this year. And they know they're not going anywhere this year. They're trying to stockpile draft picks and cap space. So that's why the Bears did it. We talked about this last week. I think it's a little curious that they paid $7.1 million of Quinn's salary in order to get the 4th round pick. If I'm an owner, I'm thinking, why are we paying this much money for a 4th round pick? Just a thought if I own the team. And they did something very similar with Roquan Smith. They're basically paying almost his entire salary. And so the Ravens are paying Roquan Smith like $500,000 for the rest of the year. I get the Bears trying to stockpile draft picks. And clearly the Bears had decided they weren't going to pay Roquan Smith. They weren't going to get him signed an extension. He wanted more money than they were willing to give. And I get all that. And I'm okay with all that. A 2 and a 5 is fine, I suppose, for a guy whose contract expires at the end of this year. I know you could theoretically franchise tag him, but I get that. So I'm totally fine with Roquan Smith if you've decided you're not going to re-sign him for a 2 and a 5. The only thing I would say is, Roquan Smith's like 26 years old. Like, couldn't he be part of the solution? Isn't he part of what you're trying to build? A young, good player that you can build the defense around? That's the part of it that I don't totally get, but I'm not there. So I'll give the Bears benefit of the doubt. Maybe they just felt like the train was too far down the tracks and that there was hurt feelings after what happened this summer and that it wasn't going to be able to be solved. And okay, that part of it, I guess I'm fine with, but the Bears aren't getting better. I mean, they just traded their best young defensive player, Roquan Smith. So they better hit on these picks. That's really what it comes down to.
Tuck's takes.
The Bears then trade a 2nd round pick to the Steelers for Chase Claypool.
So this take, Bri, because I got a lot to say, is presented by Labatt Blue Light, the pristine Canadian Pilsner. Share a Labatt with friends this football season. This is a head scratcher for me from the Bears. I mean, so by the way, they traded their own 2nd round pick, not the 2nd round pick they just got from the Ravens for Roquan Smith. So it's not like a 2nd round pick. It's going to be late 2nd round because the Ravens are making the playoffs. It's probably a top 40 pick because the Bears traded Quinn and Roquan Smith. They're probably going to be one of the worst 8 teams in the NFL. So it's a top 40 pick for Chase Claypool, who, number one, only has a year and a half left on his deal. He has the rest of this season, which we know is a lost season for the Bears. They're treating it as such. And then he's got next year, which is really going to be kind of first year of the rebuild as they're stockpiling these picks in the cap space. Next year is more or less year one, so to speak, of the rebuild. And so the best case scenario for the Bears is that Chase Claypool plays really well, and then he wants one of those 22, 23, 24, $25 million a year contracts. That's sort of best case scenario for the Bears. Interesting. I'm on board with them trying to get weapons for Justin Fields. What I think is curious is to give up a top 40 pick for essentially a year and a half of Chase Claypool. If they give him a contract now, how much money is it? How much are they willing to pay him? By the way, the Steelers couldn't wait to get rid of Chase Claypool. The Steelers have been trying to trade Chase Claypool for a while, which I think is really interesting and very telling. You know, I think Kyler Gordon's a good player. I think Jaquan Brisker is awesome. But the Bears could have just drafted a guy like George Pickens, who's probably better than Claypool, and had him under contract the next 4 years on a cheap rookie deal instead of a year and a half of Claypool. And then if he plays well, spending a boatload of money. This one's a little bit of a head scratcher for me from the Bears.
Tuck's Takes.
Bengals cornerback Chidobe Awuzie torn ACL. Also, Commanders trade cornerback William Jackson to the Steelers for a swap of conditional 6th and 7th round picks.
Well, so Awuzie, torn ACL, that's tough. He's their best corner in Cincinnati. It's a tough position to lose people. Nobody's really that loaded at corner, right? Nobody really has that many guys that they can plug in there. You lose your top guy like Awuzie, that hurts. As far as the Commanders, kudos to them, I guess, for getting anything to get William Jackson and his contract off their roster since he wasn't happy for the Commanders anymore. And I really like both these moves by the Steelers. I mean, the fact that they were able to get a top 40 pick for Chase Claypool is bananas. Like bananas. Like that is amazing. Kudos to the Steelers. I think it's a phenomenal trade because they don't even like Claypool that much. I don't know what he does behind the scenes or what the issue is, but they don't even really like Chase Claypool. Think about that. And they got a top 40 pick for him. And then William Jackson is a starting caliber player. I mean, he's a starting caliber corner that they just got for essentially nothing, a swap of conditional 6th and 7th round picks.
Tuck's Takes.
The Detroit Lions trade TJ Hawkinson, a 4th and a conditional 4th to the Minnesota Vikings for a 2nd and a 3rd round pick as Irv Smith is now out 8 to 10 weeks with a high ankle sprain.
So this is really interesting on a lot of levels. So totally makes sense for the Vikings because Irv Smith out for the year, and the Vikings, sort of similar to the Dolphins, realize they got a chance to really do something this year. And they got a chance. They got a pretty good chance to have a special year because the NFC is kind of winnable, and they want to prove they can win it and give themselves the best chance to win it with Irv Smith out, making sure they have a guy in the middle of the field to go with Dalvin Cook, to go with, Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen. What's interesting about it is they essentially, if you even out the 3rd and conditional 4th, they essentially got him for a 2nd round pick. TJ Hawkinson's pretty good player. I mean, I'm not quite sure I understand it from Detroit's perspective. It certainly feels like they're already giving up on the year and giving up on any chance of Hawkinson being a building block for this team moving forward. That's what's so interesting to me about that is if you're Dan Campbell and you're probably on the hot seat with how the rest of the season goes, that's a bad look, right? I mean, that's rough. If you're on the hot seat for the rest of the season and now you don't have TJ Hawkinson, that's not going to help you win games moving forward. And I'm just looking right now, some of these tickets now in Minneapolis are hot. I mean, I think this trade just spurred them on even more. Now it's the Cowboys, but on November 20th on the Game Time app, it's $143. So you can go see Cowboys Vikings with Hawkinson for $143 and actually less than that. Because if you download the Game Time app, create an account and redeem code Ross for $20 off your first purchase, you can get $20 off. So you can actually go for $123. Again, that's Ross for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Here's what I would highly recommend all of you guys do. Download the Game Time app on your phone, okay? Then put the code Ross in and check out in your city what's available. It's just a fun thing to scroll and see what's available and what the lowest price guaranteed tickets are. You can look, I'm looking Taylor Swift, $308, June 24th. You can get Taylor Swift tickets right now. Download Game Time. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed.
Tuck's Takes.
The Colts send Nyheim Hines to the Bills for Zach Moss and a 6th-round pick.
Right. So I think it's interesting. The Bills obviously don't run the ball very well. And I guess they felt like Zach Moss wasn't the answer and that Nyheim Hines could be and is obviously better than Zach Moss. And they're kind of counting on it, right? They want to run the ball better. They want to take something off of Josh Allen. Makes sense.
Tuck's Takes.
Despite being suspended, trade involved Calvin Ridley from the Falcons. He goes to Jacksonville.
It's kind of wild, right? I mean, he's suspended for the year for betting on NFL games. And I didn't know you could trade a suspended guy like this. Didn't the Nets sign the suspended Celtics coach? And now you've got the Falcons trading their suspended wide receiver. I guess good move by the Falcons. They were going to get rid of him at some point anyway. And the Jags wanted to make sure they had his rights now. Probably smart for the Jags to get ahead of things because maybe there'd be more of a market for Calvin after the season.
Tuck's Takes.
All right, final note on the trade deadline or lack of trade for Brandon Cooks. He's not happy about not being traded, and he posted about it on social media.
Well, evidently he was poised to go to the Cowboys, but there were some money issues at play. They couldn't agree to the finances. He's got $18 million guaranteed next year, and he's frustrated. He posts on social media. I guess I would say, Brandon, then don't sign that contract. I mean, you sign that contract, you don't own your rights anymore. They do. And so if you didn't want to be in Houston, you knew they weren't going to be good. You knew they weren't a good team. Don't sign that contract and be mad that they didn't trade you. You signed that contract to play for the Houston Texans. I don't have a ton of sympathy. I don't know if he was lied to or whatever. But by the way, they lie all the time. I mean, that's pro sports. They lie to you all the time. And so I don't know. Obviously, I'm sure he wanted to go to the Cowboys, right? Sure he wanted to go there. They're a good team. It's America's team. It's with him. They could maybe be put over the top. I don't know. But the Texans didn't think they were getting value out of it. I think the Texans would rather see if they can get better for him this offseason if they're going to trade him. Shout outs, by the way, Pizza Boy Brewing, Sporticulture, HumanHeadNYC.com, SteakhouseSports.com, Go-Bengals.com, Evergreen Economics, Vision Comics with an X, BackOfficeScheduler.com, and then MyFrontPageStory.com. Have you done it yet? Have you gotten a story for the person in your life that absolutely deserves one? If you haven't, you should. MyFrontPageStory.com. College Draft and Even Money are both already posted. We'll do part 1 of the Fantasy Feast with Joe Dolan. Absolute treasure trove information. If you like this show, you should really listen to the banner we have and the information you can get from Joe on Fantasy Feast and Steve on Even Money. Even if you don't bet or play fantasy football, I promise it's information that you would find interesting and useful. I think we're done here.
Thanks for listening to the Ross Tucker Football Podcast. Make sure to also subscribe to the Fantasy Feast, Even Money, Business of Sports, and College Draft. All available at Apple Podcasts, rosstucker.com, or wherever podcasts can be found.